So in this video we are going to present you who was Robert Schuman, his famous declaration and the context of the 1950s. So first, who was Robert Schuman?
Robert Schuman was born on June the 29th of 1886. He was a Luxembourg-born French minister. Schuman was a famous political thinker and activist, and part of the popular Republican movement, more specifically a Christian Democrat. Twice Prime Minister of France, a reformist Minister of Finance, and a Foreign Minister, he wanted to rebuild Europe after World War II and participated in the founding of NATO. As Foreign Minister in September 1948, he announced France's will to create a democratic organization for Europe with a democratic Germany.
Between 1949 and 1950, he made several speeches in Europe and North America about creating a supranational European community. This supranational structure would establish lasting peace between member states. Indeed, he was known for being one of the founders of the European Union and the Council of Europe. He died on September 4th of 1963. Fun fact, the College of Europe has a tradition of naming each of its promotions by an illustrious European's name. In his honor, the 1964-1965 academic year was named after his name. So now we are going to talk about the historical context after World War II.
The story begins at the end of World War II, as the European continent lies devastated, leaving the United States and the USSR as the two major world powers. Their growing rivalry marks the beginning of the Cold War. While the Soviets control Eastern Europe, the West looks to the US for reconstruction aid. While the old continent is found divided by the Iron Curtain, in the West the idea of European unity begins to take hold. On the 9th of May 1950, France, via its Foreign Minister Robert Schuman, proposes a Franco-German reconciliation and placing under a common high authority the production of coal and steel, the main wealth of industrialized countries, which is also needed for the manufacture of weapons. The aim is to boost the economy and maintain peace, with the project left open to countries wishing to join. The following year in Paris, 6 countries sign a treaty establishing the European Coal and Steel Community.
In 1950, the nations of Europe were still struggling to overcome the devastation brought by World War II, which had ended 5 years earlier. This led Robert Schuman to write this text, to build back together European countries.
The Declaration of May 9, 1950 is believed to be the founding text of European integration, delivered by Robert Schuman in the Salon de l'Horloge at the Quai d'Orsay in Paris. This declaration, inspired by Jean Monnet, the first planning commissioner, lays out an European organization that would be responsible for pooling the French and German production of coal and steel.
It proposed to place French and West German production of coal and steel under one common high authority. This organization would be open to participation of other Western European countries.
This cooperation was to be designed in such a way as to create common interests between European countries, which will lead to gradual political integration, a condition for the pacification of relationships between them. We can see Schuman's will to unify European countries thanks to this quote.
Winston Churchill came with the answer, create a United States of Europe. The first step towards this goal was set out in the Schuman Declaration in 1950. It stipulated a plan to combine Europe politically and economically, starting with the coal and steel industries. Why coal and steel? Because they were the backbone of war. They were needed to build tanks, ships and guns. If these markets were combined between countries, it would tie your war production directly with that of your enemy. This made war not only unthinkable, but also impossible. And this union would have to start with the two biggest rivals in Europe, Germany and France. And so in 1951 they signed the Treaty of Paris, a treaty that would mark the beginning of the European Union. 4 more countries answered the call of peace. Along with Germany and France, there were the Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg and Italy, forming the European Coal and Steel Community.
Robert Schuman's declaration had a great impact on the Europe we live in nowadays.